Welcome to the Underbelly Podcast, brought to you by Clarity Financial, as we peek underneath, poke around, and expose the unexposed stories of the week about finance, economics, politics, and life. I'm Brent Clanton, executive producer of The Lance Roberts Show and The Real Investment Hour. We wanted to create a forum for exchanging stories, ideas, and anecdotes that deserve more in-depth, unfiltered conversations, plus allow you a glimpse behind the scenes. As always, we welcome your feedback. Find us on Facebook or online at realinvestmentadvice.com. Now, let's step inside the studio for the Underbelly Podcast, starting now. And good afternoon. Thanks for joining us on the World Wide Web. I'm Brent Clanton with Richard Rosso, Danny Ratliff, and our special guest, our intern, Ben Ledig. Ben, good to have you with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You bet. We've kind of had some interesting developments in the last 24 hours on the economic scene. Richard, you want to bring us up to speed?
Well, we've had a good day in the market so far. Dow's up 102, S&P up 8 points. And Lance and I talked about this yesterday, but you're definitely going into a better pattern for markets, even though we haven't recovered from the sort of the pullback we had in February. That sort of got a little bit scary with all the volatility. So things have sort of calmed down. What's positive is, even though there was some talk from China about increasing tariffs, is the market is sort of seeming to be shrugging that off right now.
It's almost like a game of chicken, you know?
It is, and I think the market is picking up on this as it is not a trade war, at least not yet. So the market is acting amazingly rational because, as you know, it's usually be as crazy because people are irrational. So we'll see how long this little bit of nirvana lasts. Right, Danny?
My hopes aren't high.
No, I mean, listen, I just look every day and go, I'm grateful that it's calm.
Yes.
Interestingly enough, we've seen some positive news out of Kraft Heinz. That's helping the consumer staples or food and beverage sector. So obviously tech is the star. We've seen this year too much on the FANG side of things. But
what's going on with Kraft Heinz?
Well, it's just had better than expected results and earnings and so forth.
People buying more mac and cheese.
Well, of course, it's cheap. It's really good.
And ketchup.
Although I don't even know if there's really any cheese in that. But again, we saw some rotation into staples. We got in, I guess, about 3 or 4 weeks ago when we thought it sort of bottomed. So that was positive. So it's nice to see some of these sectors that have gotten beaten up contributing. And that's excellent to see. So we'll see how things work out. But the market seems to shrug off some of the trade tariff news. And we're going to talk a little bit about what happened with unemployment.
Yeah,
and the job report.
Interesting numbers in today.
We had some very strong upward revisions for May and June's numbers overall. So that was nice to see. So we're still at 3.9% unemployment rate. But June was revised up nicely from 213,000 to 248,000 jobs. May's were revised from 244 to 268,000. So that was good. Manufacturing added 37,000 jobs. Manufacturing over the past 12 months has added roughly 327,000 jobs. So again, all good. Wage gains weren't overheated. So we actually see the 10-year pulling back from that magical 3% yield, right? It doesn't seem to stay there. And we were on the show Thursday night on the Real Investment Hour, and Lance actually said, I'd buy bonds here because this is the high for the yields, and they've come down since then. He scares me sometimes. And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
But again, average hourly earnings was an annual gain of 2.7%. That was pretty much expected. June's wage gains were revised down. Wages seem to be the last to move here. And we've talked about it on the show extensively. John's talked about it, who will be on with us in a minute. Danny, we see more of the money filtering into stock buybacks. Matter of fact, the author of the article from The Atlantic on our stock buybacks starving the economy was on CNBC today discussing the article. It was very. She was good. Boy, we need to get her on. She was really good.
Well, give me her number. We'll follow up on that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And she says, "Hey, listen, if you're a shareholder, it's great, but you would think maybe there would be a higher and better use for the dollars." And she made her case. Although very, how can I say it? Unbiased, no political spin, just delivered the data. I thought it was really nice. It was nice, and it was nice to hear it from a real data perspective and not any spin on it. So that was good. So obviously, the wage gains, although they're picking up, and interestingly enough, I was on 740. I was on KTRH this morning. We talked about this. That we've had close to 20 years of wage stagnation. And we didn't see wages move from 2000 to 2008. They started to tick back up. They collapsed. We are now starting to see sort of a bust out of this long-term resistance or trend higher. But think about, and I said this morning, think about all the damage that has been done in 20 years of not getting wage increases. Living off credit, right? Healthcare premiums have gone higher. In other words, even though it's positive that they're moving in the right direction, they're very slow, and households are still very financially fragile. Pew Research Center came out with a great study that showed that most of the generations have not recovered wealth-wise from the Great Recession.
You know what's kind of going to be really interesting about this is that you're going to see these wages that are going to finally tick up. But this is going to be the death of this bull market.
Yeah.
Think about it, because we finally get what we actually really need, and that's for people to start getting, their increase in pay. Yet it's going to spark the inflationary aspect. The Fed's going to raise rates quicker, and all this debt, because of the time without wage increases, is going to come back to haunt them.
Any chance
What's
that Jerome
good for Wall
Powell
Street is not good for Main Street?
Any chance that Jerome Powell is going to pull back on the number of rate increases that they put in? He's not an economist guy. He's not one of the old guard.
He is focused on this wage gain, so that is good that it's been muted.
Yeah.
But to Danny's point, as things get better for Main Street, they may not get better for Wall Street. Even though it sounds incredibly counterintuitive, they do align. But you got to remember, the stock market is a leading indicator. It's looking at where things are going to be. So watch the yield curve. Watch to see what happens with wages. They start to heat up. I guarantee you, if wage gains were heated today, the market would have not been up.
Yeah.
My magic 8 ball told me so.
Yeah.
Well, and then Main Street's been out of the market because they haven't been able to participate. Right. It's a tough thing. It's a double-edged sword here.
Listen, if I was up against the wall and I had to make a choice, I would say I'm all for Main Street at this point.
Oh, absolutely.
Wall Street has prospered tremendously over the last 10 years.
Because Main Street's where the rest of us live.
So you know what? People getting wage increases, feeling better. No better feeling in the world.
One interesting little aspect that it was in an article that I read about the numbers this morning, talking about job creation slowing down. And it cited the closing of Toys R Us as a reason.
Those are the hundreds of thousands. I mean, thousands of jobs.
32,000.
Wow, 32,000.
32,000 workers.
I didn't think Toys R Us had 32,000 people working there.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you go down. I go in one store. I don't see one person on the floor.
But it was amazing that is that the number? Is that the scale of a number that it takes to move the needle on a data point like that?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, it is interesting. I always thought
not that anybody
Jeffrey,
at Toys R Us got wage gains.
No.
I mean, I think they paid them in like naked Barbie dolls and Power Rangers and stuff.
Well, the problem with that always drove me nuts. It's like a maze to get in the store. It's a maze to get out of the store. You got 2 people trying to check people out, and there's 15 people.
Yeah, so where are these 32,000 people? They all in one store?
I don't know.
Warehouse.
I know the one in New York. Yeah, maybe warehouse.
Warehouse workers.
Yeah. The one, obviously, the front line in New York City, that was crazy, that store.
But show me one retail store that isn't a maze to get in and out of.
Yeah, but this was very intentionally
Take it from
bad.
Danny. He's got like 12 kids.
Yeah.
All right, well, go to NEHEB. My goodness, you get in the front door and you get a zigzag just to get to the produce department.
That is
it's
true.
crazy.
Brent sound like a curmudgeon now.
I am.
We're wearing off on them.
You know what?
Yeah, Lance is rubbing off on him.
I'm one of these guys, typical male shopper. I know what I want. I go straight to it, pick it up off the shelf, and head to the checkout line.
You know how you know when Lance walks into a store? That big cloud over his head. And the grumbling.
Like Grandpa Gertie.
Are the kids still living at home? Aren't they out yet? I'm going to buy him a hump for his back next year for his birthday. Put it right under his suit when he makes the videos.
That's a great idea. Yeah, and we can shift it back and forth.
And we have to change the videos to Wednesday because that's hump day. So we'll have to change it to Tech Wednesday.
We forgot to celebrate Christmas in July. We should have had him wear his Grinch outfit.
Yeah.
That was so perfect. At Christmas, he's dressed as the Grinch. I've never seen anything so fitting in my life. No, but overall, listen, the report was fine. Wage growth is going to take a very long time to recover. Most important, it's going to take much longer for households to recover. I read a study that if wages continue to go where they're going, at the speed they're going, it'll take most households another decade to get back to where they feel less financially fragile.
Wow.
So obviously the
you're a ray of
generations are going to maybe feel better. And actually, in the Pew Research study, Gen X actually is recovering better because they were buying certain assets, houses, stocks at lows, as opposed to the silent generation or the greatest generation and or baby boomers.
Well, and you got to think that if you were just coming into the job market back in the late 2000s, you really did have the wind at your back. And so you had some great benefits. If you're looking to buy a home, you had very low rates. Really the opposite of what the baby boomers experienced because they were buying homes in the teens were their interest rates. And then now that you've actually accumulated assets, you can't put them anywhere without taking risk if you want to earn anything on it. So that's been a tough go. But now you could experience here over the next 5 years where, if you're working, of course, we've got to look at, just like we talk about often, asset protection. How do you protect assets in a market like this? When do you start taking chips off the table? But the people who are going to graduate college, they're going to be putting money in a 401k. They're going to be putting money aside. And hopefully it's going to be at lows. So they're going to really be able to experience what a really good bull market looks like.
If we could just get families to understand how detrimental the student loan debt is. And if you're I met with someone the other day who had $100,000 in student loan debt for a sociology degree.
Really?
And so, how long is it going to take to have to pay that back? So you have people blindly taking out student loan debt. Our rule of clarity, our guardrail, no more than 1 year's worth of tuition and expenses in student loan debt. I don't care how you break it up. I don't care if it's for 1 year or for 5 years, because that's how long people take to get to school.
And what kind of rates are those loans running at?
Well, heck, I don't know, close to 7 on some.
Is that supposed to be a bargain?
Well, not that it is. The point is, this debt stays with you for the eternity. Right. Okay, and it's very difficult to shrug it off. I mean, there are all kinds of forgiveness programs. I'm working on a piece right now for Real Investment Advice to help people understand this process, because we do have quite a few individuals we know that have taken on tremendous student loan debt. They're in the medical field or attorneys and so forth, but they still want to find a way to increase cash flow in their household and not having it all go to student loan debt. And there are programs available, pros and cons. So we're going to run through that.
Yeah, you hear these horror stories about these guys graduating from medical school and they've got $1 million in student loan debt out there. You never get out from under something like that.
Well, and I haven't seen the study lately, but I can't remember who did it. But as far as when students get the money, do they actually spend it on school-related activities? Or are they partying with some of the money?
Or is it beer money, right?
Yeah, and they see that I can't remember the percentage anymore. I'm going to look that up for next podcast, but it was significant. And it raised my eyebrows for sure.
That's part of the problem, because there's no control on how they use it. Yeah. And if perhaps some restrictions could be put on it, perhaps.
Well, how about financial literacy being taught? Yeah. That would be helpful.
There you go.
Okay, because I had 1 year student loan debt, and I knew, okay, yeah, I am spending it on pizza. I'm taking out $50 or $100, and I know what I'm going to spend it on, but the rest went to school-related activities. It's discipline. It should be pretty basic. But yeah, we might have to put reins around how you're spending the money, or at least use a reimbursement program where you reimburse the school directly for tuition. The money doesn't hit the pocket
that way it's not
of the
misappropriated.
Student. It goes appropriated there, and then they even create a textbook account or something that's used just for that purpose.
Yeah.
It's just like when you use your FSA or HSA card, right? If you went to Target and used it, may or may not work.
Oh, man. Don't get me started on the FSA thing.
Here we go.
I've been fighting with those guys all month long.
Brent Roberts, curmudgeon.
Well, you think you go to the doctor's office, you process the receipt. Obviously, it's a legitimate expense, and they kick it back because they can't see enough detail. Like this foot surgery that I went through. Fighting with him over that thing. And
you were trying to get your medication at Whataburger, and I don't think that they consider that. Even though it feels good.
It does.
It is like a opioid.
Yes.
It's a beef opioid of some kind.
Spicy ketchup is an opioid.
Right. It doesn't fall into the category of health-related expenses.
Okay. Well, thank you, Dr. Rosso.
Dr. Rosso.
So, would you like to introduce Ben the intern to us?
Yeah, Ben the intern. That sounds so ominous. Hey, listen, Ben Ledig is like the future. I mean, he's a pretty sharp kid. So, obviously, we gave him what we'd call a really informal, because he's kind of internship, because he's going to walk out here going, what the hell did I do this week?
Yeah, really. You mean it's only a week?
Well, it's a few days. A few days he's been here, because I didn't want to pollute his mind too much.
Internship light.
Yes, but he's had some extensive internship with Seraphin,
really?
Crunching numbers, making presentations. So very, very smart young man, Ben and his brother. So it was great having him here. But I thought maybe he's interested in finance. He actually understands basic economics just from supply and demand, because he's got a little business that's done very well.
He balanced my checkbook last week.
That's more than most people can do.
I know. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Maybe you want to share a little bit, Ben, about you and why you're looking at finance, and talk a little bit about the what you're doing with the shoes and all. It's really fascinating what he does.
Sure. So, I mean, it all started back freshman year of high school when I joined the investment club at my high school. And as joining it, they set you up with this competition where you're able to manage your own simulated portfolio. And when I started that, I kind of just picked random stocks. I didn't really know anything about investing or anything of that sort.
Like most people in the industry.
Exactly.
And so I picked random stocks, kind of just saw how that went, experimented with day trading, penny stocks, kind of everything.
Wow.
And it slowly developed to where in the future I had more developed portfolios with diversification and different balance between different sectors and all that.
Which stocks did you pick and why? Do you remember?
So I started off basically with all the big caps, like your Google, Apple, Amazon, all of that.
Well-known names.
Yeah, because I knew them. And then basically I would just do research online on different programs like Market Watch or NASDAQ and see kind of what the professionals recommended. And
as a freshman?
Correct. Yes.
Dude.
Amazing. Yeah.
Picked some of those, looked at kind of a little bit of technical analysis of the charts, saw if it had good long-term growth, invested some of those. I mean, it was all pretty much experimentation at that point because it wasn't actual money or anything. So, I mean, that was great exposure to the whole stock market and everything. And then in my sophomore year, I started up my own business, which is basically buying and reselling sneakers and other items of that sort.
That's why he was looking at my shoes.
Yeah, because knowing that they're not worth much. You got the penny stock of shoes.
It's the only thing I can get on my feet right now.
Yeah, so different shoes are very, they're in limited demand, high demand as well, and then so they're going to sell out on different websites and platforms in a few seconds and many times. So it's always a struggle for the common person to be able to purchase them in these few seconds.
I've always had that problem. What's the shoe in the greatest demand?
I mean, there's always different trends of the market and what's in high demand, what's in low demand.
I mean, you're still keeping up with this, right?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
So I would say in the past, it was a shoe called the Adidas Yeezy. It was designed by the rapper Kanye West.
I've heard of him.
So that was always in high demand, but he's released so many shoes over the past few years that they've kind of
He's
gone down a little bit.
diluted his own appeal?
Definitely.
See, he should have checked with you first.
Do people wear these shoes, Ben, when they buy them, or do they hold them? Because I'd be afraid to wear them because somebody's going to rob me,
Yeah.
take my shoes, or I don't know. It's almost like I'm wearing like something pretty valuable, and I don't know. Do people just take them and wear them, and then they want to show that this is a social status thing?
Yes, definitely.
Okay, so they do wear them. Okay.
It's definitely kind of like a social status. They'll buy like expensive shoes, shirts,
Got it.
anything.
Well, you were telling me about this place in New York that you've been buying and selling merchandise. What's the name of that company?
It's called Supreme New York. They have 2 stores in New York, 1 in London, and then a few overseas in Europe. And it started off as like a skater type of brand, and then it turned into more of what they call a streetwear brand, more for like the type of millennials. So they come out with shirts every week, pants, shorts, weird accessories like bottles, chopsticks. I mean,
Is a bottle an accessory?
Is
I
it like a
guess so.
water bottle? Or
yeah, like a water
Yes.
bottle. I mean,
Oh,
they have
okay.
so
Yeah.
many different
Yeah.
types of like weird accessories. They've had crowbars, fire extinguishers.
And explain how you make money buying like an Adidas sneaker and reselling. Are you selling it for more money than Adidas would
Yes.
sell it for? Okay.
Yeah, so for these shoes, since they're in such high demand and limited quantities, you'll have like almost millions of people trying to get them all at once. So it's very hard to get. It's taken me a very long time to be able to learn like how I can actually purchase them faster than normal
I see.
person.
Okay.
So it's taken a while to learn different tips and tricks and strategies and all that. So I'll go on a drop day, get ready for it, and if I'm lucky enough, I'll purchase them. They get shipped to my house, hold on to them, and then depending on how the market is, I'll either like sell it immediately or I'll hold on to it for a few months or even a year. So.
Okay.
Man.
I had a friend who did something like this on just a one-off basis when I was in Chicago working at Morningstar. He was a fellow analyst. He paid someone to stand online outside of the Apple store the night before whatever edition of the Apple iPhone came out. This must
Yeah.
have been 2009 or 10. Paid the guy $200 to stand in line, and there was a limit. You could buy 2 phones. The guy bought 2 phones. My friend paid him, and then he resold the phones at some profit. So,
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
I think those days are over.
yeah.
At least for the phone.
At least with the phone, right?
I'm still boggled by the price that Apple and Samsung and these other producers are able to command
Definitely.
for those phones.
Yeah.
Well, they have pricing power.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have the darn phone, what are you going to do? It pretty much is a computer in your pocket.
It is.
And how many people have cut the lines as far as home?
Right? We have.
We don't have one. We don't have a home
Absolutely.
phone.
Yeah.
So, to that point, I don't know where the price point is to say it's too painful for me. I can't do it. But for now, it is what it is. So,
And
Apple said, "Listen, we're going to get $1,000. We're not
Yeah.
worried about it."
And the shame of it is they build in planned obsolescence on these things. They're not good for more than about 2 years,
Yeah.
and then the batteries fail on any brand.
But that's any business.
Yeah.
I mean, go ahead and buy a Bach portable fan from Walmart. See how long that lasts you. That's the one
Yeah.
thing that would be bad for having American manufacturing. My grandmother said that to me
Yeah.
in the 70s. She goes, if we keep this up, this stuff never goes out. I've got this blender for like 30 years. Okay? That's not how economics works. We got to have stuff break
Yeah.
more often so that you buy it again. That's unfortunate, but
the
that's how the
automakers
whole
did
system
that,
works.
and it bit them on the bottom, though. And they
Because they weren't known for reliability anymore.
they lost market share
Yeah.
because they were unreliable.
Yeah, in the 70s, that's when
And-
the Japanese cars sort of took over.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yep.
Exactly. And then Lee Iacocca came in. You had the X cars, and gradually they've come
The
back. Oh, they were
X-Cars.
horrible. Oh my God.
That was like driving a coffin.
Yeah.
I mean, it was built like a coffin.
Yeah,
Wasn't it? It was like a coffin with wheels.
they were scary.
Yeah, so I give Lee Iacocca a lot of credit for trying to do certain things. He was one of the first creators of the Mustang.
That's right.
Yes, he was. Now look at how that brand
iconic
has
Mustang.
lasted. Yeah, absolutely. So Ben, how many shoes do you have at your house right now?
So right now I have about 15 pairs at my house.
Only 15. My wife outflanks you on that.
Right.
So does Lily Jang.
Huh?
So does Lily. So,
Yeah. I get the complaints from my mom every day about all the boxes stacked up in the office room. She's like, you need to get these out of here, sell them or something.
Now, you also were going into, and it's interesting because I know this stuff from The Walking Dead, Funko. And Funko produces novelties.
Okay.
Bobbleheads, cartoon caricatures
Yeah,
of
yeah.
major shows. And
We're having one done for Lance.
We should. Did we? We should get a fun. It wouldn't be called Funko, though. That's for sure. There's no fun in
Grinchco.
that. Yeah. Curmudgeon-o. What Ben and I showed, I said, Ben, hey, it is stock. It trades on the NASDAQ
Yeah.
for Funko, and the stock is up 55% this year or something like that.
Really?
Yeah. But then you wonder, because what they've produced. But these are highly collectible, right? You get them at the Comic Cons, as they're called. We used to
Yeah.
go to a lot of those. And they're of all the major characters, say in The Walking Dead or Breaking Bad or anything that's pop culture, Game of Thrones, right? All of these.
Sports, everything.
Sports. So they are, again, I just don't know. That's fickle, almost like investing in restaurant stocks to me. Because restaurants go in and out of favor. We
Yeah.
saw some really bad news out of Red Robin and Shake
Was it
Shake Shack and all
Tony
this other stuff.
Vallone's is closing a second restaurant here in Houston
Mike
this week?
Ciao
What is that all about?
Don't know. Also, Starfish closed, one of my favorite restaurants, and Pie Pizza, at least temporarily.
Really?
Yeah. This was my friend Lee Ellis's places. I don't know what went on there, but I think there's a change in management and all that. But Ciao Bello was a great Italian restaurant, but I think he also closed Vallone's Steakhouse, right?
Yeah,
And now
yeah.
he's just got Tony's, I guess.
It's just sad.
Listen, it's a brutal town for restaurants.
Well, the
So-
restaurant business is brutal, period,
yeah.
regardless of where you are.
Yeah.
But so Ben, so how's it work with the Funkos? You do the same kind of process, or
Yeah,
how
I
does that
mean-
work with those?
I mean, I just got into it
Uh-huh.
recently these past 2 weeks. So, I mean, it's all been kind of basically doing the whole sneaker thing all over again. Because it's been hard for me to learn, like, what's good, what's bad. Because I ended up buying around 30 of them this past weekend. And I've already, like, returned 6 of them because they weren't, like, good enough to have decent enough profit when I resold them.
Which ones did you buy?
So I bought a bunch of them. So there's some from Iron Man. A bunch of Dragon Ball Z. It's
Okay.
a cartoon show.
Yep.
Basically just a whole variety of items that
Okay.
were like for the Comic Con in San Diego.
Yeah,
And
which just wrapped up.
so that's always one upside of reselling like items or these Funko Pops or shoes, whatever. If there's always like not a good enough profit, you can always just return it to the store you bought it from.
Wow.
And so you don't really take a loss.
Wow, that is
Who
a
ever
good.
thought of that? Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would think when people buy these, they shouldn't take them out of the box.
Right.
They should keep them.
Yeah, don't cut the cellophane.
Yeah, don't do that. Don't be playing with that Funko. Store it away.
What was
Overall.
what was that red and blue wrestling match you were talking about one evening on
Oh,
the
the
show
Rock'em
this week?
Sock'em
Rock'em
robot.
Sock'em. Rock'em Sock'em. We actually had one of those.
Who we did? Yeah, we did
Adam,
too.
Adam still
Remco.
has his.
Did ya?
Yeah. And when he moved out when he got married, moved out of the house, we rediscovered it.
Was it in a box?
It was in the attic. It was in pretty good shape.
Wow.
And he still has it. So hands off.
It's funny, like I did the average annual return of G.I. Joe with the Kung Fu grip
Really?
and compared it to the S&P 500.
And
Yeah.
who won that?
G.I. Joe.
G.I. Joe.
G.I. Joe with the real hair and the Kung Fu grip. And I
Yeah.
own a few of those from when I was a kid. I'm like, wait a minute. Here's the graph. I went off of eBay and all
Yeah,
these sites,
yeah.
and I sort of got an average price over the years. And the S&P, I'm better off investing in toys.
Wow. So, Ben, is it possible to, I'm not going to say manipulate, but is it possible to create demand for a certain object just because it's funky and it's out there, and somebody like you latches onto it in a certain quantity and sort of drives up the appeal factor?
Yes, that's definitely what like a thing that just happens like over time with Twitter and different social media accounts, because there will be like an announcement of a shoe being released or something, and if you have a few Twitter accounts, Instagram accounts, whatever, they just start talking about it, hyping it up. You know, if it just is a snowball effect from there, and then the price is pretty much based all off demand and like what the consumers think of it. It's less of like the quantity and the color. It's more about what the people want. So it can definitely be driven by social media for something that might not even be that rare or that cool. It's all about the hype behind it.
It's such an emotional buy.
Wouldn't that be an interesting social experiment, though? Just to come up with, some silly something like, okay, this black shoe here, this is rare, okay, and we're gonna post it and start pumping it up a little bit.
That's going to take a lot of work to pump that shoe up
Yeah,
to be the thing, isn't it?
worn only once.
But no, because it's such a fickle business. Like what might be hot one day is no longer. And who knows what changes the dynamic of that. So you're almost in what I would call the speculation.
Yeah.
Like if you were in the stocks, you'd be speculating because you're making a guesstimate on, you're studying all the trends,
Definitely.
but all of a sudden the trend can turn on you.
Well, he's like a speculator instigator.
Right. You have to create the buzz as
You're
well.
the initial
you
spark
have to
plug.
create the demand.
Yeah.
And then suck the supply out of the market.
Right.
And
And listen, when I was a kid, they were shoes. When we were kids, there were things that the yo-yos, the Duncan yo-yos.
The Puma-
I could have had a black market on Duncan yo-yos.
The
I
blue
mean,
suede Puma
Yeah,
Clyde.
yes.
Come on. That was the first. That was
was the
Air
first-
Jordan
yeah.
before there were Air Jordans.
Well, and remember these? What has happened to these things? Everybody had these things, and they have
gone away, thank God.
disappeared. They are no longer to be found.
Boy, those are the Yugos of those things. I don't get those things at all.
So you said you have 15 pairs of shoes lying around. Have you ever really loaded up on something and it hasn't sold? Have you gotten caught holding the bag, so to speak?
So, I mean, it's happened to me once. I have a pair in my house right now that I ended up buying it from Germany. So I had to pay like $50 in shipping to get it to the U.S. And it was like really a hyped up shoe before the release and everything, but right after it just flopped.
Really?
And because I paid so much more than like the average person for the shoe because of the shipping, the price is like right about where I paid for it. But then if you take into account like selling fees, PayPal fees, all of that, I'm ending up losing a little bit of money. So
But are they comfortable to wear?
yes, very.
Well, just, take it in stride.
I
No
would,
pun
but
intended.
it's a size 7, a little bit too small.
Oh, really? Is there a range in sizes that they're more popular, or if it's an
what is it, like 9? What are the popular?
So the most popular is probably going to be between a 9 and a 10. And when something's more popular, obviously the company produces more of it. And so the best sizes to go for are the really big ones, like a 12 and up.
Got it.
Or like a 6 and below.
because they don't make as much, right?
So for this recent shoe, I ended up purchasing a 4.5 of it, which is the second smallest size behind a 4. And the whole market of the shoe is around $230 to $250. But this one size 4.5, because they didn't make much of it, it's at $350 right now.
And you can truthfully tell your parents you just made a small investment.
But this is just how this is supply and basic supply and
Yeah,
demand
yeah.
and economic. I mean, all those skills that Ben has exhibited, he can use in finance.
Yep. And
Or anything. I
One day
mean-
we'll be working for him.
Yeah.
I know. I'm trying to think. When will I be able to work
I'm
for
so
Ben?
glad I've been nice to him this week.
Yeah, because he'll remember
Yeah.
who was nice to him, who was fun. Because Seraphim is not fun. We're fun. So, well, that's great. That's great. So Ben's looking at some really incredible schools.
Yep.
So
And you're going into your senior year, right?
Yes, sir.
Woohoo! Have you got senioritis yet? I wonder what senioritis would look like on a guy like Ben.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I'm sure there's a shoe for it. But he's going to be working on his essays and other things now. And his brother is really a computer science whiz.
Younger
so where's he
or
going
older?
to school now?
Older.
Where is he?
He's going to be a sophomore at Rice.
At Rice.
Excellent.
And you guys don't live far from there, so that's convenient.
2
Although I
blocks
don't know
away.
I don't know if you ever see him. I don't want to go home to mom and dad's. So Ben's got a great, I think he's got a great future ahead of him.
Very
So I just
good.
told him,
Thank you.
listen, depends on what area of finance you want. Do you want to work behind the scenes and crunch numbers, or do you want to work on the front lines and work with clients and help them handle their emotions and hit their goals? Listen, we need advisors. I think what's the average age for an advisor now? Over 50.
It's over. Yeah, definitely over 50. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just not as glamorous as it used to be.
Right.
Yeah, we all drive Pintos now.
Yeah,
And you can put him in some good shoes.
that's
Yeah.
true too.
Financial advisor and sartorial.
Free pair of shoes. Yeah.
Consultant.
Financial plan and a pair of shoes.
I like
Awesome,
it.
Mark.
Yeah.
And I told Ben he can come in anytime if he wants to come in, hang out on the radio show. He's always welcome to come and sit with us.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Is Rice on your short list, by the way? Do you want to stay home or you want to go away?
I'm thinking I want to go away. I mean, I'm definitely going to apply there because it's such a great school.
Sure.
But it's just for most people who live in Houston, they kind of look at it differently
Yeah.
than somebody, I don't know, on the East or West Coast.
It's more ho-hum for someone here.
Because it's so close here. And
Oh, but it's one of the best schools
It is.
in the
Well, he
country.
visited Vanderbilt, and that makes me jealous. 'cause
Vanderbilt's cool.
That's where I wanted to go.
Yeah.
And Notre Dame, right?
right.
That's
I
it.
read that Rice University is one of the best education values
It is.
in the country.
Even though it is expensive, but from a value perspective,
Yes.
it's one of the best.
And I think it's also number one in student life in the country. So
I have a second cousin
I
who
did not
just
know that.
went through the music program. She is a cellist and
Oh,
sits in
nice.
with the Houston Symphony and is
Wow.
now teaching at Rice University. So if you end up going there, I'll introduce you.
Oh, I bet she loves teaching there.
Oh, she does.
Yeah.
She's just phenomenal.
Uh-huh. I bet.
Just phenomenal. Hi, Megan.
Well, that's great. And Ben will keep us updated on what he's up to,
Yeah.
what he's
Definitely.
doing.
All right. Hey, quick couple of stories before we run out of time because we're about to.
Yeah.
We were talking about the employment numbers
Yes.
this morning and a couple of interesting studies. I teased this on the post for the podcast about older Americans experiencing some downward mobility, and unless something changes, we're going to see a whole group of seniors in some abject poverty within several decades here.
Well, and this comes out of Professor Teresa Gallarducci's think tank, the Retirement Equity Lab at the New School.
Man, she is spot on. I
She
tell you.
is amazing. So she will be on the show again, even if I have to fly to New York and grab her and get her over here.
Well, we'll just take a camera and tape her.
I would.
Play
I
it
would
back.
absolutely do that. But she really digs into about seniors and the fact that Social Security is so important, and the fact that we lost pensions in this country. And in her book, Rescuing Retirement, she and her co-author looked at these, I think it was Tony James, but the universal individual accounts funded through a worker's career to recreate a pension that only requires a matching 1.5% contribution from employers and employees, and then you get a revenue neutral credit. But what you're doing is you are opening the door to recreate the pension in a much more cost-effective way, cuts out a lot of layers of costs that you have in defined contribution plans. It helps tremendously small businesses that do not have retirement plans for their people.
Right.
So we have inadequate savings. We have people that need or require a guaranteed income choice. And she's one of the leading voices. So as people get older, as she talks about this, 40% of older Americans will experience downward mobility as they get older. So they've had inadequate retirement accounts. Then at 70 and a half, they're forced to take money out of their accounts. They're seeing their healthcare costs, Medicare premiums, overriding even the cost of living adjustments from Social Security. So people are really having a hard time. So they're falling into poverty or near poverty. And she's got some really great solutions or suggestions. What I don't understand, in a way I do, but I guess I'm a little upset by it, is why nobody listens to this. There is some legislation to maybe create a pension option within 401ks.
Yeah.
I would love to see what that looks like. Her estimate is if we implemented guaranteed retirement accounts, the number of poor elderly will decrease by 22% between 2018 and 2045. 8.1 million seniors would be saved from poverty by 2045.
And poverty is defined as having an income of $32,000 for a couple. And below.
And obviously, as a senior, healthcare costs are a big issue.
Yeah.
Right?
I
There's
have a
all this talk
prediction.
about chaining Social Security, to what's called the chained CPI.
Yeah.
But there is a CPI-E, which is elderly, but it looks at putting the mix together in a way that seniors would spend.
Yeah.
But the inflation rate is so much higher. Social Security does not want to use that because it's health care, right?
Yeah.
So the cost of living adjustments with chained are going to be a lot less than they would be with the CPI-E.
You remember the Waltons?
Yes.
That TV show.
I've been trying to recreate that in my own life for a long time.
I think
that
we're
and Little House.
I think we're going to see a lot of that. A lot more
Yeah.
of that.
Oh,
Yeah.
multi-generational. Listen, Pew
Multi-generational.
Research does some
Yeah.
great work on this, that it is much more common for families all to live together. At an economic necessity, but
Yes.
just caregiving. Okay? Because long-term care, like on our retirement program, and John, you were there for that, long-term care gaps or people that can't perform activities of daily living, that is a formidable expense people are just not prepared for.
Well, and no one's had to really come to grips with it. It's smacking a lot
We
of
don't
people
want
right in
to.
the face.
I don't want to think I can't wipe my own butt.
Right.
It's
Who
you know
wants to
what?
deal with that? But you have to.
It's going to happen.
And now insurance is harder to get, right? At
Oh,
one time it was
absolutely.
easy or relatively easy, and then
Cost prohibitive.
Yeah.
Premiums go up 20 to 100% per year. So there's all these hybrid products that are coming out, but most important, these hybrid products are also very expensive. I mean, 46% of Americans can't raise $400 for an emergency. Imagine having to pay $500 a month to build up or purchase enough money for long-term care over several years.
Yeah.
So yes, to your point, the multi-generational home, I think, is going to continue to grow. And then there are a lot of bitter single people over 40. And I think we're going to have these communes.
I agree with that, actually. Yeah. I think that's-
Commune.
We're going to have these communes, like we're all got our little tiny houses.
Yeah,
John's
yeah.
here.
Yeah.
I'm here.
Right.
Most of the women I know are on the other side of the street. And what happens is you have a communal garden and all that. And I really see these kinds of communities.
Almost like dorms or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
trailer
actually
park.
they are
Yeah.
doing that in
Yeah.
certain trailer parks where seniors are living comfortably because they're alone, but they depend on each other. They have community garden.
Yeah.
They have a communal kitchen. And I think this is going to be a huge wave based on all. When we're going to call it Bitter Oaks.
Bitter
That's
Oaks.
my first development. What do you think, John? You like that?
I like it. Yeah, I see it as
It
a way
would be
of
like
the future.
I'd have to create. Maybe I could work with Randy Lemon, but I'd have to create a lemon for the logo, like
Right.
right. What do you think?
Let's get some investors and get it going.
Exactly.
We'll get
Listen,
it-
why am I here? I
get
got
it built by the
I got
time we
ideas
retire,
like Ben,
right?
and I'm
Yeah.
stuck here.
Good night, John Boy.
Yeah. Good night.
Very good. All right. Thank you so much for watching us this afternoon. It's been a lot of fun for us. We hope it has been for you. And we'll have this posted up on YouTube shortly, and you can access that through realinvestmentadvice.com. Our thanks to Ben Ledig for the week that he spent with
Giving us hope for the
I didn't know
future.
it was just a week. I thought it was going to be for like a month or something.
Yeah.
It's giving us a hope for the
Future
future of-
generations.
yes.
That's right.
Well, thank you for having me. This was
Absolutely. John, thanks for jumping in here. Thanks
Sure.
to Danny, who had to leave. Y'all have a great weekend. Thanks for watching. This is the Underbelly Podcast.